There are a lot of contradictions in Trump's own thinking. The two-state solution is out. So when he says that he doesn't want turmoil in the Middle East, how can he do that? So while it's all right in terms of rhetoric to say that I would not want to, in order to have some kind of peace, why does he want Europe to spend more on defense? To seek peace with Russia or to be able to confront Russia more?
Is Putin the real demon in the Russia-Ukraine war?
Not at all. Not at all. If you listen to what he says, he's the most sensible chap going around. He has tried to control this conflict. He has, over time, tried to warn the Americans and the Europeans not to cross his red lines, and they have been repeatedly crossed. And he has not reacted because he wants to avoid a frontal clash with NATO. See, all this while, Biden, quite sensibly, was saying that he is not going to give permission to Ukraine to use long-range missiles against Russia because that will mean a direct US-Russia conflict. And that was a sensible policy. So how is it that a few weeks before he'll be out from power, he has given this decision? The Democrats have not disappeared from the political scene in the United States. Okay, he won, but almost 50% still are Democrats. And then the NGOs and the media and the think tanks, and of course in the Congress too, they'll make his life miserable.
Jaishankar has gone on record saying many countries are nervous about Trump returning to power, but India is not one of them.
Modi and Trump enjoy a very good personal relation. If you've seen what Trump has been saying during his campaign, although he's been talking about India as a tariff king, I mean, India is not a pawn, and we don't want to be a pawn. US may have certain policy towards China, certain concerns about China. Well, we should have an independent approach to China, but
one event, that Donald Trump winning the US presidential race, has sent shockwaves around the world. The man has not even taken oath, but ripples are being felt across the world. Now, I'm joined by Kanwal Sibal, former Foreign Secretary of India, and on the implications for the new world order post-Trump, and of course, India's equation with Trump's America. Welcome to the show, sir. Let me just start with the Lebanon ceasefire, for instance. How do you see this? Israel suddenly taking a U-turn on a ceasefire deal, which was not within sight for the longest time.
well, it's not very clear what has compelled Israel to do this, because all this while they have wanted to do what to actually devastate Gaza and also hit Lebanon very hard in order to eliminate Hezbollah, and they felt they were making progress, and Hezbollah had been decimated. And there are voices within the cabinet who are opposing this ceasefire because they felt that they were having an advantage on the ground. There's nothing really which compels Netanyahu to agree to a ceasefire in Lebanon, except, and that we don't know, their assessment that they have not been able to achieve their objectives, and they don't want to get mired into this morass as has happened in the past, and therefore they're using this particular moment to look good and agree to a ceasefire. And the media narrative is that Hezbollah itself is seeking a ceasefire. So, mind you, the Lebanese government would have wanted a ceasefire because Beirut is being destroyed, and Lebanon has three very distinct population elements. Everybody is not with the Hezbollah. Now, insofar as Trump is concerned, as you know, people in his cabinet, these appointees prospectively the prospective appointees are very, very pro-Israel. Trump himself is very pro-Israel. As you know, he shifted the capital from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And he's fully supportive of Netanyahu. The new defense secretary appointee, Hegseth or Hesget, I forget what his name is. Uh,
Yes.
he's messianic in support of Israel. The manner in which he speaks,
Hmm.
uh, the evangelist, the evangelical passion for Israel. And similarly, the other appointees in the State Department and in the National Security Advisor are all pro-Israel. And even if they were not as pro-Israel as Hesketh or Hexeth,
Hmm.
uh, they have to then cater to what Trump's own beliefs are with regard to Israel. So uh, let me put it this way: it's good if a ceasefire is agreed to and sustained, because that will stop this indiscriminate bombing of Beirut, as we see on television, and numerous civilians killed every day. That will be a good thing. Now, there could be two factors in this. One, that Netanyahu has been declared a war criminal by the International Criminal Court. That makes his life very difficult in Europe, including in Europe, because he won't be able to travel to most important European countries. So maybe it's a way to cut losses. And also, maybe I can't understand why he's not waited for Trump to to
True.
come to power. And the only explanation is what I gave, that they felt that they must cut their losses because they are not able to achieve
You know,
what they
so
intended to do.
before Trump won, and even after, he's constantly been talking about he will stop the wars in Middle East, and uh, there are many who are talking about this being Netanyahu's gift to Trump even before he takes office. So he's at least stopped it on one front. How would you agree with that assessment?
Well, there are a lot of contradictions in Trump's own thinking. If he wanted, first of all, as you know, they have completely withdrawn all support and recognition to the Palestinian Authority. So the two-state solution is out. So when he says that he doesn't want turmoil in the Middle East, or he doesn't want to end the conflict in Middle East, how can he do that unless the root cause of the problem is not addressed in
You
some
can at
way?
least put it on a back burner. You can't solve it like this without a
Uh,
two-state solution.
true, true, but the two-state solution will not come. It now can be ruled out because the manner in which Israel has reduced the West Bank into small enclaves surrounded um, by walls and by other security measures that Israel has put in place there, precisely in order to prevent the emergence of what we also say is a viable state. Now, how can it be a viable state? That is one. The other is that, yes, Trump, especially Jared Kushner, had worked very hard on the ground in order to go beyond this traditional Palestine-Israel conflict, integrate Israel more and more into the Middle East, as it were, and that's the beginning of the ITU2, etc., and the India Middle East European Economic Corridor too. But that has been upset a great deal because of what has happened in Gaza and now in Lebanon, because the prize that Jared Kushner and Trump had in mind was the reconciliation between Saudi Arabia and Israel is not going to take place unless there is some forward movement on the Palestinian question. Now, I can't see Trump and his team delivering on that. So while it's all right in terms of rhetoric to say that I would not want to, I'm talking about Trump, that he would not want to uh, have a conflict in the Middle East, but then you have to have the tools, political, diplomatic, territorial tools, in order to have some kind of peace. So I'm a bit doubtful.
You're a bit doubtful. Especially in terms of wars that are going on around the world. The 2006 war happened with Lebanon, and then there was peace, and now again it flared up now. So again, now there'll be peace, and again there'll be a flaring up later. Uh, but at least it's good. On the face of it, Trump would have said, "Okay, I stopped it." What do you think is going to happen with
See,
Trump's arrival on the scene?
the other thing is that Israel's concern has been that northern Israel is under attacks by the Hezbollah, and there has been a movement out of that area by thousands and thousands of Israelis. Now, I can't see them coming back. Even now, despite the fact that Hezbollah has been, I don't know if it's been decimated, but certainly it has registered serious blows. It is still firing missiles into Israel. So
Hmm.
I can't see unless there is a very stable ceasefire backed by the possibility of a real political solution of some sort. I can't see the Israelis coming back to northern Israel that easily. And one of the reasons why he may have agreed to ceasefire could be this, because there could be internal pressure, because I believe the number is
Yes.
pretty large of the
Number is
people.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Number
So
is large, plus also lots of internal pressure from within his cabinet also, and from the US also.
yeah. So and the other thing is that okay, in 2006 or whatever the date is, there was a UN resolution that up to the Litani River, uh, it will be demilitarized, and therefore the possibility of Hezbollah firing missiles into northern Israel would be eliminated. But do you think that now, today, any UN resolution of any kind can take place with the kind of total total breakdown of relations between United States and Russia.
Hmm.
And Russia has become much more openly anti-Israel than was the case in the past, and China even more so. So trying to get some kind of an understanding or resolution in the United Nations to stabilize a ceasefire, to my mind, is going to be a very difficult task.
It's just, since you spoke about Russia, let's move on to the other conflict, because that's another conflict that Trump has said, the Russia-Ukraine war. He said that he'll be able to end it once and for all. What are the chances of that happening? Do you see that likely?
Mm, Well, there's one thing called hope and wish. Now, when it comes to hope and wish, yes. But when it comes to reality, I don't think so. This kind of boast that I'll settle it within 24 hours is totally unrealistic. The the bottom lines of Russia are very, very clear. On the other hand, the West and Europe, NATO, has got involved in this war in a way that they cannot step back, because
Hmm.
then if they did, then it would expose the hollowness and the cost and the foolishness of their policy towards Ukraine and the conflict. So
But
how
that's the
can
whole
they
premise.
agree? Hmm?
That's the whole premise that Trump fought on. So, fought this election on, that he is going to stop this madness once and for all. So, don't you think he will just come in and stop all the outflow to Ukraine, both in terms of aid and weapons?
See, there are two, three things in this. One is that all said and done, the Democrats have not disappeared from the political scene in the
Hmm.
United States. Okay, he won, but almost 50% still are Democrats. And then the NGOs and the media and the think tanks, and of course, in the Congress too, they'll make his life miserable. He says that the manner in which Biden ordered the exit from Afghanistan was shameless, and he wants the generals who were involved in it uh,
To be
to become answerable and give their resignations on day one. Now, if he walks out of Ukraine, the argument would be that this debacle is even more important, is more costly, because there, Afghanistan, far away, it was not really in the security zone of the United States. Just is that they extended themselves unnecessarily into that area and then had
fair.
to go away. But here, the consequences for NATO, for Europe, for transatlantic relations in general, would be terrible. And then the new Europe, on which America has put their bets on so much, that is Poland and the Baltic states, who in fact are running the show on Ukraine to a large extent. And of course, there's always UK there. Uh, they will be mad at any precipitate decision by Trump to stop all aid to Ukraine, and then let Ukraine actually, uh, how should I say, be forced into negotiations, cede territory, and this and that and that. There is also the other thing which he says, which should not be overlooked, that he will propose something to Russia, and if Putin balks, then he will actually step up support to Ukraine. After all, don't forget, and the Russians remind us of that it was during his first tenure, that sanctions were imposed on Russia, serious
Hmm.
sanctions were imposed on Russia, and all the diplomatic compounds were taken away. The diplomats were expelled en masse. And at that time, Trump had boasted that you say that, the Russians supported me, and that's how I won the election. I was the chap who imposed the strongest sanctions on Russia. So, I mean, I don't know. That Trump says many of these things, and maybe his heart is in the right place insofar as avoiding a conflict. What he has really in mind is that this is draining U.S. resources, and he
Yeah,
wants to rebuild America, make America great again. And he
yeah.
feels that,
The America First promise, which he, I think, given the fact that Trump is
but
not really a
let
guy.
me make, let me make another point in this, which is relevant, which is
Yes.
this, that he wants Europe to spend more on
Mm,
defense
mm.
and not sponge on the United States of America, and while he himself is going to strengthen his armed forces. So, in a sense, you can interpret it differently, that America becomes great again, becomes militarily strong again, and Europe, by spending more on defense and assuming more responsibilities, becomes stronger militarily. So, in effect, the transatlantic alliance in military terms vis-a-vis Russia becomes even stronger. Not immediately, but in due course. So I think you have to read between the lines as to what it might mean. Why does he want Europe to spend more on defense? To seek peace with Russia, or to be able to confront Russia more in
And
combination with US power?
yeah, true. But he's not really been very big on multilateralism, even in his first term. He's been going on about uh, you know Europe needing to other NATO partners, basically not just Europe but also Canada, to be spending more. This last minute attempt by the US administration, the Biden Harris administration, to sort of allow Ukraine to use long range missiles to strike deep inside Russia, allow US weapons to be able to do that. Do you think that was an attempt to stop Trump's uh, movement in a particular direction?
Oh yeah, of course, of course. See, all this while, Biden quite sensibly was saying that he is not going to give permission to Ukraine to use long-range missiles against Russia, because that will mean a direct U.S.-Russia conflict, and that was a sensible policy. So how is it that a few weeks before he'll be out from power, he has given this decision? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense, because the rationale which he gave earlier for not permitting Ukraine to use these weapons remains relevant. Nothing changed except what you said. That, but there's another angle to it, that uh, up the ante and make it very difficult for the Trump uh, to seek
Withdraw from Ukraine or withdraw from more aid to Ukraine.
seek some kind of a agreement with Russia. However, there is another angle to it, which is that the Biden administration and people people around Biden may have reasoned uh, that let's go down in history differently, in the sense that till the last minute, we stood by Ukraine. We
Mm.
even gave permission to Ukraine to use the long-range weapons. So we did our part. But here is this man who's come back, who's come and actually, how should I say, abandoned Ukraine, abandoned NATO, abandoned Europe, in a sense, put him in very bad light and put themselves in good light, that they were consistent, they were continuing to support Ukraine in the larger interest of transatlantic relationship and the US position in the world. And
Mm.
Trump has come and undermined US's own position and Europe and relationship with Europe and cost American leadership globally by, in a sense, abandoning Ukraine and aiding Russia to achieve victory in Ukraine. So that could also be the calculation.
Is Putin the real demon in the Russia-Ukraine war?
Not at all. Not at all. If you listen to what he says, he's the most sensible chap going around. He has tried to control this conflict. He has, over time, tried to warn the Americans and the Europeans not to cross his red lines, and they have been repeatedly crossed. And he has not reacted because he wants to avoid a frontal clash with NATO. And he has said publicly that how can Russia take on the United States and Europe and Japan? He's also cited figures of uh, the size of their economies and the size of the Russian economy. And he says, I mean, basically saying that I'm not mad, that I'm going to take on such a powerful enemy. What will I gain from it? His,
Mm.
his objectives have been very limited. And it's not something that he's saying now. For the first time, he stated them very openly in the 2007 the Munich Security Conference, where he laid out very clearly his agenda that in no way he's going to accept Ukraine becoming part of NATO and Georgia, of course. And if you look at the present CIA director's memoir, the back channel, and he was ambassador to Russia when I was ambassador to Russia. I knew him quite well. He says very clearly in his book that uh, don't offer NATO membership to Ukraine and Georgia. It's not Putin's red line. It's not Kremlin's red line. It's not the red line of the political class. It is the red line of Russians. And Putin had told him that under no circumstances will he allow Ukraine to join NATO, because, and he gave his reasons for it.
You talk
So
about William Burns.
I don't think Putin is at fault. You keep extending NATO to his borders, and look at what the present, the new foreign policy chief of the EU, who's going to succeed Borrell, this Kaya Kalas. She has publicly said that she wants a breakup of Russia. Now, when you have the EU foreign policy chief saying such things, what does it mean?
True. So clearly, if he's not the villain of this piece, and Mr. Donald Trump knows that, because if reports are correct, he has a hotline to Putin, then clearly something has to give somewhere.
No, Putin himself has, at this Valdai conference in Sochi a few days ago, Putin said that Trump's thinking on Ukraine is in the right direction, and we're willing to listen to him, and and uh, uh, and he said it was something that they could look at. Now, the point is, and he also has been saying, and he also said, and he's been saying in the past, that we have never closed the door to negotiations. In fact, he reminds everyone that in Istanbul, they had reached more or less an agreement, and which was initial on the Ukrainian side till the former Prime Minister of Britain, Boris Johnson, sabotaged it. And you know what Boris Johnson has said subsequently? That if Russia wins in Ukraine, is the end of the hegemony of the G7. So you can see the stakes that they have in not allowing Russia to gain any kind of upper hand on the question of Ukraine, whether it's NATO membership or what have you, or the Donbass region. Actually, Putin's hands have been forced a bit by this attack, the ATACM's attack on deep into Russia, which prompted him to launch his Oreshnik missile and
Right.
demonstrated to the West, to everyone, that no anti-ballistic missile system can intercept this missile. It was a very
Absolutely.
powerful message that he sent. I don't think he would have wanted to send it, but since Biden took the decision to allow Ukraine to step up the escalation, it became a question of the credibility of Putin internationally and domestically, So he had to show something. So he showed it, but he has said that he's willing to wait till Trump comes to power and see what he has to offer.
Offer and
Because Trump doesn't want to prolong the conflict, because the conflict is certainly a huge burden on Russia. There's no doubt about it.
absolutely. So let me just move focus a little now, sir, because there's also Trump's coming to power, and Trump has already announced 25% tariffs on Canada, on Mexico, and an additional 10% on China. So, our Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar has gone on record saying the many countries are nervous about Trump returning to power, but India is not one of them. How do you take this assessment?
Well, firstly, it's good diplomacy on our part. Why should we show nervousness?
Yeah, obviously.
Unnecessarily. And then why should we say anything which gives the impression that we are nervous? So the best thing to say is that other countries may be nervous, but we are not. But then there is a reason why he's saying this. One, of course, very important, is that we have dealt with Trump in his first term. And there were difficulties, no doubt. But on the other hand, there were positive features also. Number one. Number two, it is very clear that Modi and Trump enjoy a very good personal relationship. If you've seen what Trump has been saying during his campaign, although he's been talking about India as a tariff king, but he has very warm words to say about
Yeah.
Modi, as if he admires the man. So, in
Hmm.
other words, we have a channel of communication to Trump at the highest level. On top of it, you have a new Secretary of State who, as you know, moved a bill in the uh,
Yes.
in the Senate in July this year, which actually calls for much freer transfers of technology to India, stronger defense relationship, more pressure on Pakistan, etc., etc. So therefore, we have somebody in the secretary in the State Department uh, which has very positive views on India. And then you have the National Security Advisor, who was the co-chair of the India Caucus, which
Yes.
means that he's full understanding of India-related issues. He's in constant touch with our diaspora because the caucus actually, the reason why the caucus, or the origin of the caucus, is actually the work done to create this by our diaspora.
Hmm.
So the diaspora is in touch with him. We have another channel of communication with him. And he's defined the relationship with India as the usual thing, the most defining relationship and all that. So I think all these are reasons why we should be relatively comfortable. On the tariff issue, it is clear that Trump will do something, but for the
Hmm.
time being, he's targeting Canada, Mexico, and China. And he's talked about 10 to 20% tariffs on others.
Yeah.
Our thinking is that if it is 10% tariffs on India, we'll be able to manage it. Number two, if it is 60% on China plus 10%, which he has announced, this may give us some opportunities in certain sectors where
Hmm.
Chinese goods may become more expensive. But then there are other issues like the WTO. Trump has no time for the WTO. So this dispute settlement mechanism and all that, it's not going to start functioning under Trump, which is a big blow to the international economic order, because the only rules-based international economic order is centered on the WTO. So that will be very unhelpful. And then we can always talk with Trump saying, fine, let's have a trade deal with you, not a free trade agreement, but a limited trade deal where items of your interest, which you think we have higher tariffs and you want to export to us, we can see what we can practically do. And
And you do the vice.
on our side, if there are certain things we want to export to you, and there's certain things demands we have, we can look at that. So kind of our problem is MFN. I know a little bit what happened during Trump's first term, because he was asking us to reduce tariffs here and there, IT products, medical devices, this and that. But we said, look, we can do it, but because of MFN, the biggest benefactor will be China, not you, because they are highly competitive. So we have to get around that problem by having some kind of a trade agreement with Russia. So we can put this on the table and involve the United States in a negotiating process to avoid any precipitate action by him on the tariffs issue. But yes, on that, there will be pressure on us, no doubt.
On that. But given the contours of his cabinet, that he's the potential cabinet, and most of them are China hawks, and many of them have a very favorable view of India, as you just pointed out. Given that, how do you see the next 5 years playing out between in this axis? Given that the U.S. has, even in the Biden administration, it was very clear that they were looking at putting India as a competition, as a turn away from China and turn towards India proposition.
Two things. We are not a peon, or what do you call it on the chessboard, American chessboard?
A pawn.
A pawn, yeah. I was using the French word. The pawn on the American chessboard. I mean, India is not a pawn, and we don't want to be a pawn. U.S. may have certain policy towards China, certain concerns about China, because it has alliances in the Western Pacific. It has forces there. It has bases there. In fact, and then they see China as a peer competitor, which wants actually to become the preeminent global power. So, in a sense, the China challenge for the United States, what has been described as a pacing challenge, what really it means is that it's American power and its power within the global system that will be undermined by the China challenge. But with India, there is no such concern. There's no such concern. And therefore, we don't have to follow in the footsteps of United States in its confrontation with China. What we can offer and reasonably offer, and which will be appreciated and has been appreciated, is that we forge some kind of a consensus within Quad and broadly under the Indo-Pacific concept to find ways of deterring China, which in part means strengthening India's capabilities, which is happening in some ways, but it is a slow process in terms of giving us certain technologies which can help us deal with Chinese incursions into the Indian Ocean. But more importantly, Indo-Pacific is fine, but when the Indo part is concerned, who looks after the Indo part? If United States and Japan and Australia have to be preoccupied with the Pacific part, who looks after the Indo part? Only India can. There's no other navy in this region which can remotely compete with that of India. So India is ready now to do burden sharing, that India will look after the security of the sea lanes of communication. And there are potential choke points, as you know, in a worst case scenario where Indian Navy can be activated. So that will be our contribution, and this America will appreciate and will have to appreciate, and Trump will have to appreciate too. So I don't think we should actually align our policies with that of the United States on China for two reasons. One is that we've just had some kind of a reduction of tensions with China.
Absolutely.
We should build on that and not hurt our own longer-term interests by unnecessarily following in the wake of the China hawks in the United States. Number two, our problems with China currently are not in the Indian Ocean, they are on land.
land.
And it's a territorial issue. And there, we neither expect nor will the United States get involved in that. So we have to face it alone with some help here and there in terms of some platforms and this and that. But ultimately, it's our responsibility. And we've seen that for 3.5 years or more. We've been on our own. And we
And
have
we have managed to keep them off.
we keep
So
them off, and in fact, force them to actually reach out and be some kind of an understanding on patrolling and this and that. So, like what Macron said in the G7 summit at Hiroshima, that uh, talking about, and this was Biden's policy on China, that we are not camp followers. We have our own interests in China. We should pursue independently of the United States. Now, and here is an ally and a NATO partner saying that. We are neither allies nor NATO partners. Therefore, we should have an independent approach to China. But in terms of the common challenges, both of us face with Chinese expansionism and its power ambitions, there is a basis for our cooperation, which is being reflected in the Quad and the Indo-Pacific and all the maritime,
right.
on the Malabar exercise and everything else that we hold with the United States and others.
Right. And the Indian Navy has been helping the American warships more than one time. We've seen during the entire Red Sea crisis.
And before that, during the Iraq War,
Absolutely.
we escorted their ships. And you're absolutely right. We have committed, I don't know, 12 or 15 ships to deal with this Houthi origin crisis to merchant shipping in the Indian Ocean, and we've shown our capacity to do so.
Absolutely. All right. So thank you so much. I think, thank you for your time. That's a lot of perspective. Thank you, viewers, for watching this. If you have any questions, please do share them with us in the comment section below. We will try and get back Mr. Kanwal Sibal, Ambassador Kanwal Sibal, back to our show sometime soon and speak to him again and try and get some of your queries answered.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.